Hi folks, welcome back to the B29 restoration project. So as you can see, the canopy stuff that I did on the last video is no longer on top of the airplane. Honestly, got done doing that early last week before going to work. Went to work for a couple of days, and the more I thought about it, the more I was not happy with the overall look that it had. So I kind of came to the conclusion while I was away for work that was going to get trashed, and I was going to start over in a different capacity as far as how we attacked doing the nose repair or the nose changes to fix how the look of the canopy in the cockpit area was. So with a 3D printed part, it looks good from the side, looks good from the top, looks good from the front. But when you look at it from this view here, or just slightly off, the peak is just far too high because of how the cross-section shape of this bulkhead here is. And that was really the whole thing that was throwing it off. Like, in order to make it look right from all angles, it was going to look wrong from another angle, so you could never really get it perfectly visually okay. Like, you couldn't even fudge it really. Like, something was going to be noticeably off once you look at like a real B29 compared to this thing. So I got on CAD for a couple hours this past Sunday after getting home and made up a CAD model. I think it took about an hour to draw up the basic nose shape, and then another hour or two to do some 3D printed plugs, or not plugs, but I should say 3D printed molds. So I'll throw in a picture of that now. And 3 days later, it is now Wednesday morning, and the molds sections got done printing last night. This one was the first one I printed, and I went ahead and came in here with some primer, brushed it in there, sanded it down, and then sprayed some more primer, the darker color primer on it. I'm not going for perfection with these. I'm just wanting something to be good enough. So I guess I already did some priming and sanding on that one. That one's pretty much as good as it's going to get. Here we have the bottom. This one came off the printer early yesterday morning. The printer that I use to print these big things, it's my own design. I built it from scratch. Uses basically off-the-shelf components, but it's not really intended to do detail work like that one. And then the top part of the fuselage frame is more intended to do big stuff with reasonably good quality and low detail, which pretty much is exactly what this bottom one is. It's a big part with reasonably good quality, but no detail. And it does a very good job of doing that type of printing. I use it mostly for printing very large stuff with a 1.2 millimeter nozzle, when most 3D printers are using like a 0.4 millimeter nozzle, so it's 3 times as much material it's flowing through. But this one came out really well. There's a couple of areas here where it did not get very good adhesion between the layers. I'll just throw some CA in that to fix it. Same, another little spot down here. And then what I'll do is I'll just paint some primer in here with a brush on everything, sand it smooth as possible. And again, we're not going for perfection here. I'm really just going for something that looks reasonably good, and then I can do the body work and the final sanding of everything and get it really smooth once it's on the airplane. But again, this is the bottom nose section. As you can see here, the cross section shape of it, it's a big difference in what it looks like. I mean, it's this very front nose, which is actually where the very front of the fuselage should be perfectly round. This is not perfectly round. So that's the bottom two. Here we have the top part. Again, the top part, the printer's not really intended to do detailed stuff like this. It actually did a really good job of it. I'm quite impressed with it, especially considering it's a 1.2 millimeter nozzle. I mean, it's a honking big nozzle pushing filament out when the filament's only 1.75 millimeters in diameter. So it did a reasonably good job. So these are both ready for primer. A whole lot of sanding. I'm going to try and get that done today. I have to leave again tomorrow for another week. of work trips. So I'm hoping to get both of these painted and primed, maybe even waxed, and probably the CAD work I need for laser cutting the fiberglass layers. As far as doing the noses, I'm going to lay up these in fiberglass. It's probably going to be a layer of 1.5 ounce and then 2 layers of 6, and then maybe some carbon up here on the top around the canopy frames. The nose, probably not going to worry about that because the shape of it will add a lot of rigidity to it once you put the clear plastic in. But maybe a layer of carbon, just a little bit of extra stiffness in this area. And then those will get slipped on the nose, bonded. Well, right now I'm kind of debating between bonding it permanently to the nose and just having access inside the radio compartment through this hatch that's already here. Another option is basically chopping the nose off about like this and then straight across and then down again, and then having a structure here and the whole nose come off, and that gives you access inside the fuselage for all your radio equipment and maintenance and whatnot. I really like that idea, mostly because it's a huge area that you can get inside the fuselage. The downside to it is it's a lot of structure, a little bit more weight. Honestly, with chopping all this foam off of it, a little bit extra weight it'd probably be negligible addition of weight to it, considering I believe this whole nose is solid foam, because you can see this dowel is just straight into foam, so at least from here forward is solid foam. So that's kind of what I'm looking at right now. Primer wise, I use this stuff on pretty much everything. It's a Evercoat DuraBuild. It's just a regular automotive primer in a can. It's about they were about $100 now. I think they're around 150 to 175 depending on where you can find it. This is the same stuff that I have rolled onto the fuselage. With the rollers, well, I roll it on everything. Fuselage wing, I just use these little 4-inch, fairly short nap trim rollers. You can get a little kit like in here for like $3 from Home Depot or whatnot, and I just roll it on super heavy. Pretty much the same thing I'll do inside these 3D printed parts. I probably won't roll these. I'll probably roll this one and roll the majority of that one. So I don't know, we'll see. I haven't tried using a roll on one of these, so maybe I'll do that for something different. So enough yapping, let's get to work. Okay folks, as you have just seen in quite a short amount of time compared to what it actually took. I've got the molds for the top and the bottom of the cockpit section for the nose of the fuselage all primed and sanded. As you saw, I chose to roll the primer on this time around instead of brushing it. It actually worked really well, much better than I expected it to. It's a little bit more consistent as far as application goes. There are a few areas where you can see that now after sanding the second layer of primer, there's some high spots where the print has come through, and then obviously primer in the low areas. This I'm pretty happy with. Even where the print areas have come through, it's fairly smooth. Like I said, I'm not expecting perfection out of this. It's not going to be like a fiberglass mold to where the plug is going to be really nice, and then when your parts come out of the mold made from that fiberglass or that composite plug, you get that same really nice quality. Not expecting this. I don't mind doing a little bit of extra body work after the fiberglass part comes out, so I'm happy with what this is. I'm going to let it dry for probably another hour or two, and I come out here and I can put probably 3, possibly 4 coats of wax on. When I wax these things, I typically put it on very heavy, and I don't polish it off, at least not the first 2 or 3 layers. And the reason why I don't polish it off is that way it can really build up thickness, and then it fills in any of this little porosity that the 3D prints have. So that's the top one. Obviously, we can see the window openings. The window openings, like I said, they're not inset inside, they're actually inset to the exterior of the part. The reason for this is I don't have to put any thickened like Cabosil epoxy mixture around the frame if they were inset to the inside. So and what that allows me to do is that when I cut this out, the only thickness that will be around the windows themselves is the actual thickness of the fiberglass layup. So that's why I chose to do it this way instead of traditionally have them inset and then put thickened epoxy around there. It's just going to give a thinner appearance or a thinner frame around the window openings. So top half is done. Bottom half is also done. See, this one has about the same amount of breakthrough from the 3D printed area. There is a little low spot right here. Again, I'm not too concerned about it. I'm going to let it just stay that way, and then when I pull the fiberglass part out, I can just sand this low spot, which will actually be a raised area on the actual part. So that won't be that big of a deal. And then the nose, that one's already done. This print, like I said, my big printer that I designed and built isn't really intended to do stuff with detail like this. It's more just flat, smooth areas. So for this particular part, it's not the nicest looking one, but it will do for now. Again, I'll just do a little bit of body work and sanding when it pops out. This one I'll actually probably make it just a little bit thicker of a layup. I'll probably do 3 layers of 6-ounce glass instead of 2 like the rest of it, just to have a little bit more material to sand down into. But we got all that done. While paint was drying, I went ahead and I used a laser cutter here to laser cut all the fiberglass layers. I got a couple layers of 1.5 ounce, the 6 ounce, and then some twill weave peel ply. Same thing here, a couple layers of 1.5, a few layers of 6 ounce, and then 2 pieces of twill weave peel ply. Again, these are all laser cut. I used basically the shape of this part, and I enlarged it 1.5 inches all the way around the perimeter of it to give us these glass layers. So they should fit in there very nicely with a little bit of overlap, so we can get a good, a nice seam as we put it on. What I'm going to do is the initial layer on one side will be stuck up a good bit, and then the other side will not be. I'm going to try and offset the glass layers so there's not like 6 layers here and 6 layers here to where it's a big difference thickness wise. I'm going to try and modify it to where it's not like that. So yeah, that's all that. Yeah, that's about all I got for now. This is not a whole lot of work. Well, it's a lot of work for this video, but the video probably won't be very long because of it. Unfortunately, got to leave for work tomorrow, so leaving the layups for these is probably going to take, probably this time next week, so Wednesday next week. This is now, I think today's the 11th. the 10th of July. I don't know. Either ways, it's a Wednesday in July. This video will probably come out the day that I'm doing this now, so everything is kind of real time at the moment. End of the month, I got some stuff coming at the end of the month. I think it's more primer. I'm really struggling on what to do paint wise. I know what I want. I know the look I want to do, and the look I'm looking for is kind of between like the B29 dock and their polished, fully restored look, and then like a World War II theater bare metal top is kind of what I'm thinking at the moment. I've bought a bunch of stuff trying to figure out exactly how I want to do it. I've done a little bit of a test plate here, which inside the shade they kind of give me the look I'm going for. This is a little bit dirtier now. This is a really crude one. Like, I didn't put a lot of time and effort into this. I need to do another one that's a little bit better. But kind of going for the bare metal look on the top. The bottom, thinking the flat black. That's what I'm thinking at the moment. But the bare metal is something I definitely want to do. I've thought about doing like a bare metal, actual bare metal finish using flight metal or air conditioning aluminized tape. It's not off the table right now, but I really don't want to do it because of all the compound curves on this vertical tail and those nacelles. Luckily, since the bottom's flat black, probably going to cheat and not do the whole airplane in metal. That would just take way too long. If I do bare metal, it'll probably be like the bottom third here, around the top to the bottom third, and probably a panel line that's down that area. That's where I'll stop it, so it's not super noticeable. But again, trying to figure out ways of making a shiny silver that resembles bare metal, not polished, but not dingy, corroded looking, kind of like somewhere in between. If I could figure out how to do that in paint with just using silvers and dyeing them somehow, that'd be amazing. So if there's any painters out there that know of a trick to do like a bare metal look that kind of gives you those different hues of bare metal based off of how like they have weathered, get in touch with me. I'd love to hear what you got to say. But for now, that's all I really have for the B29 until next week. So y'all have a good one.